All right. So we're going to start this session out with some Q&A. So Monet is going to start with some questions. If you have a question, raise your hand. And if you guys don't mind passing the mic back and forth, that might be a little easier. So Monet, go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, so I had two questions. One, I feel like you kind of answered this, but it had to do with the Social Security because
Yeah,
obviously that's a huge concern for even people our age. Like, what is that going to look like? So I just
sure.
want to know what your perspective is on that. And then I've been on several of your Q&A trainings, and I've heard other agents who are seasoned across the country talk about ask if New York was an option for insurance, and it seems as though New York is one of those states that a lot of carriers are not insuring. So I was just curious why that was.
Um, so your first question, the state of Social Security. So I'll give you my expert analysis as a insurance peddler. I don't know. I don't think it's going away. I mean, my personal opinion, this is why I like final expense, because I think the political ramifications of either party going after Social Security, despite how broke it may be, is too much to risk their jobs, right? So I don't really see anything changing. I mean, Al Gore was talking about the lockbox back in, when was that? 25 years ago, something like that. And, not much has changed. So personally, I think that's a good thing for us. I'm only looking at this strictly from a business standpoint. Is this good for us to run our business? And the way I see it is that with a growing percentage of the population that are receiving entitlements, they've paid into it for years. I think they have a right to get something out of it and expect something. And with their voting power, I doubt that that's going to change from a career standpoint for us. Now, my great grandchildren, I mean, will they be screwed? Maybe. They'll deal with it. But in the meantime, for our business, it's great. And then your other question was New York, terrible state to sell insurance in. Final expense, why is that the case? New York requires a domiciled or a company to be domiciled in the state. So they actually have to have an office there. And they manipulate the commissions on a state level that's unlike any other state. Most states are a part of the compact. They all kind of have similarities in their laws, and it makes it easier for life insurance companies to have a homogenous product in. But New York just messes it all up. And so you have commissions that are dramatically lower in New York. You have carriers that won't get a domiciled location in New York, and therefore you don't have access to as many carriers. Prosperity pulled out recently. Um, Transamerica, Mutual of Omaha, Foresters, they've pulled out in the last 5 years when it's really been needed. So, and if there's no telesales friendly carriers from there, maybe three options that are there. So, long story short, we don't even bother. It would be a great product to sell if you had something to sell. But if you live in New York and you're watching this at home, what I would recommend is sell outside of the state. Be telesales, sell other states. It's just not worth fooling with. Questions? Okay, yeah, going back.
So with especially final expense being basically a one call close,
Yeah.
from a business operations perspective, are you guys revisiting leads if you get that ultimate objection? Hey, I'm not interested. Do we call back and revisit that
Oh
lead?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll kind of explain to you some what we do with the free lead program and what I would recommend you all to do that are buying your own leads. So in our free lead program, if somebody says they're not interested, but they don't say, don't ever call me ever again, what I would call a DNC or do not call registration, or not DNC registration, but DNC tag, then we'll cycle them back into the list of leads to sell. And I know it sounds like, well, why would I want to pitch somebody that has already been pitched? Well, here's the thing. Sometimes it's the person that just can't make the connection. There's just some dissonance there. I have been in multiple homes over my life as an agent where I sat across the table from a guy a year ago and he flat out said, I don't need insurance. I don't want it. Not interested. And then they send another card back and they bought from somebody else and they won't replace it with me because we just didn't connect. So the point being, number one, that's definitely something we do in our free lead program. As an agent, you need to be comfortable with doing that too. And maybe you cycle it in your CRM to maybe revisit it in the month. I assure you they won't remember you. They get calls constantly. So, but maybe it's a timing issue, right? But don't throw away the not interested right now, but maybe later. Questions?
With your agents, what's your target premium on an average deal, if such a thing can exist? And then
Sure.
what's the danger zone? Either too small or too high that would put it
Yeah.
in the red zone where, yeah, occasional deal will happen like at $150, but when do you know that an agent is off the reservation?
So from a strategic perspective, the best policy to buy is the one that's easily affordable in the final expense market. So our scripting is designed to get to that, whatever that number may be, right? Now, realistically, where it's turned out, and I'm just accounting for the free lead program, it goes back and forth, $20 up or down, around $900 AP. Okay. So about 75 bucks a month is the average. There are agents who, and this is where you get into more of a admittedly anecdotal perspective. I don't have a data-driven answer for this, but there's a number under 50. It could be 40, 30, 20 bucks a month where some agents will complain. Those policies tend to fall off faster because they have less to lose, is the argument I've made. They pay 20 bucks for 6 months. So what? That's a 6-pack of smokes, right? Or maybe just 1 pack, it's like no big deal. But then again, if you have somebody who's paying $150, $200 a month, more likely than not, they're less likely to lapse because they've had the wherewithal financially to be able to afford that from the beginning. If it was sold right, if you sell it to somebody who actually can afford that easily, then that tends to be I believe, again, it's anecdotal, I don't have data, that tends to be stickier business because people are serious. So for me, it always goes back to that core strategic, sell them what they can afford. We know our clients are on a fixed income. If you've ever been in the home of a client, they don't have a lot of money. It's obvious, but if you're a good salesperson, you can talk them into something they should never do. And so you have to walk that line of, encouraging to get what's best, but also what's affordable. And they'll appreciate you for that because the policy that stays is the policy that pays. It's the other way around. It probably pays, stays, whatever. It's about the same. Get the idea. Questions? Good question.
What, if anything, do you do or we do to retain business or offer value after the sale?
Sure.
Is there, I know, is there, we're sending cards on their birthdays, text messages, is there any offerings to the people that we sell to make them remember our name? Should they even have a question about their policy? You know what I
Sure.
mean? Or someone tries to replace you, they might contact you.
Great question. So this question is about retention. I think retention first starts with how you sell the deal. It goes going back to what we just discussed, making it easily affordable, selling them the best plan that has the best combination of coverage value for their health conditions and then also the best budget. So the first way you can improve persistency is selling correctly, right? Again, we teach all this. The second thing is what you sell. So if you're in a one product shop and you're selling one company, Lincoln Heritage, Senior Life, I don't have anything against those companies. It could be any company, it could be Prosperity. If you're forcing one client to take one product, you're not always going to give the client, more often than not, a good value. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't. But what I teach our agents to think and act as if I'm coming in the door in the next 90 days to replace your policy. Now, if that happened and you guaranteed and knew that was guaranteed to happen, how would you sell differently? What would you sell differently? If you knew I was coming in and I was going to stop at nothing to replace that within ethical constraints, that informs what we teach agents to do. Because there will be another agent and they could be below average. And if you sold them something bad, even if they're a below average agent, they'll still sell the deal because it's obvious. Oh, I can go from 10,000 to your weight to 15,000 first day full coverage. Yeah, Mrs. Mildred. Okay, sign me up, So sell like that. So be a broker. That's incredibly important.
What's a rough percentage of your sales that are fresh sales of people that don't have any coverage versus replacement?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't have that number. We just pulled some interesting numbers on what percentage gets sold from the date your lead was made to any time in the future. About 25% of our sales get sold in the first day that the lead was generated. And then I think it's within the first 90 days, only like 50 to 55% get sold. So why is that important? Well, there's a lot of talk about aged leads as being crap or garbage. Well, on our data, and this is for our free lead program, because that's what we track really closely. I mean, stuff that's over 3 months old, basically 3 to 7 or 8 months now, that's where half of our sales come from. That's crazy. Aged leads are gold. you know? So don't discount age leads. Go back and these are Facebook leads. They supposedly don't have a long shelf life, but here we are making sales off of them months after they're originated. But I don't know what percentage. I know that generally speaking, selling in person, you're going to get more replacements than you would if you're selling over the phone. To what degree depends on the agent, but there's definitely a difference there.
Is there a different script set for a replacement sale versus the normal?
Yeah, we're going to get into that, I think, here reviewing the script. For telesales, there is. It's like a side quest. You find out they've got coverage, and then okay, what do you got? What is it? How's it work, right? And then you circle back. So yeah, it depends. Any other questions?
Sorry, I keep asking
Yeah, you're good,
questions.
man.
What's the difference? And this might be like more of a legal question with insurance, but what makes
Not
it a
lawyer.
replacement and not just here's a different plan and then you cancel your old plan? Like, is it what makes it a replacement plan versus just a second plan that they took
Oh.
out and then they decided to cancel the first one?
So
So I know there's a form you got to
Yeah,
file, but
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the question, right? So how do you determine if you're replacing something? I mean, it's ultimately up to the client to cancel it. So that's why everybody here, whenever you write business, even if you're not replacing it, you should fill a replacement form out. You should always do a CYA if you can. I don't know if you can do it with e-apps, but the point is there in some states like Alabama require you to have a replacement form done if they have a policy, but even if you're not replacing it. Because what it does is you can list on there, we're not replacing the policy, but you're aware that it exists. So if ever anything came back to you, you can say, well, this client signed this replacement form that said that they weren't replacing it, even though they did, right?
Okay.
So, but the general rule with replacements is use the what would I do if this is my mama rule, right? If I was in the situation with my mom or grandma, would I want to replace this knowing what I know about selling insurance? Let that be the kind of ethical guide stone for you. That's what I would suggest. And don't do it if it's like, clients, $3 saved for a policy that's been enforced 2 years. Is that a contestability? No, I'm not replacing that. Even though she may want me to roll it into one policy, I'm not going to do that. I'll just sell her a second one and I'll tell her, like, if you're my mom, I wouldn't do this. Here's why. Money comes to the people who do the right thing. It's not a straight line, perfect, but if you do the right thing, you'll be taken care of. Questions?
Are all the leads coming, and maybe this is, I think you said Oscar was going to be here, but
Yeah.
Are all the leads coming from social media, or are direct mail, is that kind of antiquated?
Yeah, it's funny. Direct mail was the cornerstone of this business when it was a face-to-face driven business, but it is extremely expensive and difficult to get quality direct mail leads. Postage has gone up. It's about to go up, I think, 10%, 9% here soon on postage. And I don't know. And Georgia is terrible. I mean, I don't know if you could get a direct mail lead for $60 here. It's crazy. So for most states, direct mail is off to the sun is setting on direct mail. Now for our lead or for our telesales, it's all Facebook generated leads. I'm not opposed to other mediums like TikTok. There's a lot of seniors on TikTok. That may be I know, kind of strange, but
Right.
how else are they going to communicate with their grandkids? That's how Facebook was originally too. And point being, that's where the people are at. That's where the attention's at an affordable rate with decent intent. So we do all that there. There's some people that do transfers from television commercials, that kind of thing. It's a little more expensive, harder to get into, but that's an option too.
But in terms of face-to-face versus telesales,
Mhm.
social media is just going to be the way to go.
Yeah, I think so. I think even with face to face, our agents are using Facebook leads in the $20 to $30 range, $25 to $35 range, and they're about as good as direct mail. So it's like, unless you're in some oddball state with low or high response rates, I would just stick to that for face to face sales.
Thanks.
Guy in the back there.
Sorry to dominate and ask so many
That's okay.
questions, but
Eric, right?
yeah,
Yeah, Eric. Hey, Eric.
Because you have such a large sample size and data on this, with an agent who's working full time, what would be like an expectation, either daily or weekly, as far as production number of cases, like one a day, one and a
Yeah.
half per day?
I mean, it's a function of lead volume and skill set. But besides skill set, we develop that. But from a volume standpoint, I think a good agent to be defined as a good agent and over the phone, I think you at least have to sell 5% of your leads, convert 5% of them. If you're working Facebook leads, a lot of conditions here.
Mhm.
So if I get 100 Facebook leads and I can sell 5 of those, I consider that a good agent. Okay. So, but there are agents like Jay, we'll listen to his call here in a minute. He's converting north of 10%, 12%, right?
Mm.
So it just depends. It's when you're below 5%, especially 3 and 4%, like it's just, if you're giving them leads as like a call center would, they're probably not going to cash flow. You know, they're probably, if they're buying leads, they're probably not cash flowing either. You know, it's just not a good deal.
How many deals per day would be like within the range of what a on-target agent should be expecting?
1 to 2.
1 to 2?
Yeah, I think that's a good starting point. Oh, let me look at here on YouTube's here. I'm going to make sure I answer their questions. Jay says, how do you approach conservation? In other words, if a client changes phone numbers, address, bank account, et cetera, they didn't notify the agent, goes to persistency. I mean, honestly, for me, so I think, yeah, let's talk about conservation a little more. A lot of it comes down to how you sell it. We talked about that, but what do you do after the fact? I admittedly did very little in the way of conservation. We would call behind it. I would have an assistant call behind, talk to the client, try to save the deal. But and you should do that. There's nothing wrong with that. But beyond that, I don't know what else much you can do. Now there are some that will do mail outs. That will follow up with text messages. There's things you can program into your CRM to do that on an automated basis that can help with that. But for me personally, admittedly, I just sold it and ran. I just wanted the deal closed and made sure it was affordable because I feel like that's the driving force of whether or not it's going to stick. Chris, you want to comment on that? You got the mic there, Chris. What do you do for conservation? You see a lapse. What are some suggestions?
Well, obviously, you call them immediately, and then you could email them. If their number is disconnected, you can go to White Pages and try to get a new number for them, maybe. I mean, there are a couple of things, but ultimately, if you can't get in touch with them, there's not much you could do, unfortunately. If you live near them, obviously, you can go to the house. But if you're telesales and you're out of Texas and the client's in Wisconsin, you're not jumping on a plane, essentially. So,
yeah. I mean, it's that you do want to make sure one thing for conservation, real just really persistency. If they got a bank account, please draft their bank account. Okay. If they offer to give you a card, don't take it if they've got a bank account. It's always go for the ACH bank draft. Just better persistency that way. Always, when possible, use Social Security deposit billing. Okay. And that's what Jamie was talking about. That's when we time the draft to when their check hits their account. And I joke, but it's true. We need to beat the client to the ATM because the way our clients operate, it's the 3rd of the month. They got to pay their bills, and whoever's in line first to get the money is going to grab it. Okay, whether that's you or them. So make sure you're using carriers that do that. Prosperity, Trinity Family Benefit coming in does that as well. American Amicable, probably some others I'm forgetting. SBLI, thank you, SBLI. Excellent when it comes to persistency quality. Let's pass that mic down here, this gentleman.
So I'm new in this world, and I came here and I've been in so many Q&As with you guys.
Yeah.
But you always say in your page also it says that you are expected to pay for $750 a week for the leads.
Right.
Is that correct, or do you have to spend more money?
So
Quickly?
it depends. So real quick with us, you can either buy your own leads or you can get them for free. And that's either telesales or face-to-face. So if it's free, right? There's no cost for leads in that model. If you're buying your own leads, the commission's higher, but you have to put out the money for leads. So generally speaking, and I'll have Oscar speak more to this, most agents if they go telesales, they're going to do our Alpha Lead program. It's a lead management program. It's $500 a month to pay him, and then a deposit on a minimum basis of $750 weekly. Now, what makes our program unique is that $750 goes all towards the purchase of leads. We don't take money we don't mark up the lead price. So if 750 leads buys you $750 buys you 100 leads that week, That's the cost you paid for it. $7.50 divided by 100, $7.50 each. We're not adding another $5 to make money for us. We don't make money on leads. Does that make sense, everybody? So that gives you the opportunity to get really low price leads, because most leads, when you buy them from a vendor, are 15 to 20 bucks. All right. Here, you're probably going to spend $5 to $10 a lead. So there's significant savings, and I think a better quality, arguably, as well. So you're looking at probably a $3,000 to $4,000 a month investment to do brokerage, to do it the right way. You may need to spend more than that if you want more leads and scale up. But truthfully, nowadays, I mean, most agents are coming into our free lead program. I mean, I think 90% of agents should be on free leads. Buying leads is a psychological trauma. It's tough every week to put out $1,000 and have to explain yourself to your spouse and other people and worry about the money and then perform correctly. And so what we found with free leads is you don't worry about that. You just worry about selling, because you can never lose money like if you have a bad week by buying leads. So our performance on the free lead program is immensely better, I think, in large part because of that.